Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use your Promarker and Copic pens to create little beige animals like this rabbit here. As you can see, he's completely one colour, but he does have a little white nose and white feet because this gives it a nice cute little finishing touch. Right, so let's get started. First you need your stamped image. I'm using the Lily of the Valley Spring Bunny stamp here, but you can use whatever you like. As long as you do what I'm doing, you will get the same effect and you will be pleased with the result. Now when you do stamp your image, you need to make sure that you're using a dye-based ink, like the Memento or the Impress ink pads. This just means that when you're using your marker pens, the outline of your image won't smudge or anything and you'll get the best result. So let's start colouring him in. Now for a light brown animal, you need to use Sandstone if you're using the Promarkers, or E31 if you're using the Copic Chow pens. So let's start colouring him in. Now I'm just going to put a little white edge around there, which is where his little white nose is going to be. And then I'm just going to colour in the rest of his face. Now you can see as I'm starting to colour, it is quite blotchy and quite uneven. But the key is not to panic, just keep going over and over the same areas and the colour will build up and you'll end up with a nice smooth result. This is what's good about marker pens, they're not like felt tips. You can go over and over the same area loads of times and it doesn't rub up the paper or anything. The key is just keep working, work quite quickly, you don't need to rush or anything, it's not going to dry and you're not going to spoil it, but do keep working constantly. And that way you will get the best result. And then I'll just colour in his ears like that. Again, just keep going over and over the same areas until you're happy that it looks nice and smooth and it's a really nice even colour. And then move on to the next bit. If you work within the blocks of each of his limbs, so just kind of colour in one area where it's line to line and make sure that's nice and smooth, and then move on to the next bit, you'll get the best result. Colour his arm in there, and then I'm going to leave his feet white, so I'm just going to put a bit of brown down onto his feet, colour in under there, like that. Again, go over it a few times so that it's nice and smooth. And that is your coloured in rabbit. Now what you need to do before you put shading on top is to put him aside for 5 or 10 minutes and just make sure that the ink is completely dry. So I'll put that aside and I'll get one that I did a bit earlier on, which is there. And as you can see, the ink has gone a paler colour now. And that's how you always know when it's dry, because it does dry quite a lot paler than it originally looks. And now I'm going to start adding a little bit of shading again. Under his ear and under that ear. Now you might think this is a different colour, but it's actually not. This is still the Sandstone colour in the Promarkers, or use E31 again in the Copics, which is the first colour that you used, but because you've let the ink originally dry, when you lay it down on top, it builds a few layers on top and creates shading. So this way you don't need to bother buying a different colour pen to add shading. If you let it dry first, you can then just get the same pen and use that to shade your image. Put it where shading would naturally occur in real life, so put it under his ears, down the sides of his face, under his arms and things like that. Now because he's got a white face and little white feet, you don't want to use this colour to shade those. You want to use a pale grey, which again you need Ice Grey 1 if you're using Promarkers, or C1 if you're using the Copics. Just doing this and taking a little bit of time extra to add this different bit of colour shading really does finish it off and make it look really professional. Like that. And then again, just to finish him off, I'm going to use Blossom Pink in the Promarkers or RV10 in the Copics to give him a pink nose, little pink feet and a bit of a pink ear. Now if you're happy with the level of shading that you've got, you can leave it there, or again if you want a little bit of extra shading, let it dry for a few more minutes and then go back and add more of the Sandstone colour underneath there and build it up that way, and that is your little finished beige bunny.